The news with Ayrece Stewart. Good morning, Ayrece.
Good morning, Sophie.
We start with the headlines.
Health Ministry records high numbers of acute respiratory infections while gastro cases also on the rise. Prime Minister Ramgoolam addresses Tokyo International Conference on African Development in Tokyo. Human Rights Commission calls for urgent justice reform. Judge Nicolas Belpo withdraws from Afrinic case. Child abduction case sees 8-year-old taken abroad without mother's consent. In world news, French researcher in Russia faces espionage charges. And in sports, no races this weekend due to mid-season pause for assessment. And we start this morning with the weather. According to the meteorological station, clouds from the east continue to influence the weather, pushed by a high-pressure system to the southeast of the Mascarenes. With this unsettled climate, cases of acute respiratory infections have been on the rise since the beginning of the month. Acting Director of Health Services, Dr. Fazil Koulabakis, reports that between August 11 and 17, 4,253 cases were recorded, more than during the same period last year. Dr. Fazil Koulabakis reminds that vaccines remain available for those most at risk. He is voiced over by Ashibatu.
This winter has also been particularly cold, leading to a rise in acute respiratory infections. A number of viruses are currently circulating, including influenza, adenovirus, COVID-19 and others. Those at higher risk, especially children under 5, the elderly and people with chronic illnesses, are more likely to develop complications such as bronchitis or sinus infections. We strongly encourage the population to take preventive measures. Flu vaccines are available and can be administered weekdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. It is equally important to maintain proper hygiene practices. Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue paper when coughing or sneezing and dispose of it immediately in a closed bin. Wear a mask if you are sick and wash your hands regularly. You should also note that self-medication is not recommended.
And the Acting Director of Health Services also notes that an increase in gastroenteritis cases has occurred and is urging the public to remain vigilant and adopt preventative measures.
We have also observed an increase in the number of gastroenteritis cases. This situation is unusual for this time of the year, but is linked to the rainy weather conditions this winter. Between 11th and 17th of August, a total of 1,456 cases were recorded, compared to 1,307 cases last week and around 900 cases during the same period last year. The public is therefore advised to take the necessary precautions, boil water before consumption, wash your hands regularly and consume home-cooked food.
And Prime Minister Dr. Navin Ramgoolam spoke this morning during the plenary session of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development. He emphasized the crucial role this initiative has played in Africa's transformative journey. He also highlighted Mauritius's creation of a modern regulatory environment to support businesses, protect investments, and encourage innovation. The Prime Minister called for closer cooperation between Japan and African nations in the fields of fisheries and the ocean economy. The President of the National Human Rights Commission, Satyajit Bulel, is calling for a complete and urgent overhaul of the criminal justice system. In the Commission's first published newsletter, Bulel denounces the wide gap between courts and prison services. He argues that Mauritian prisons have become training centers for criminals instead of stepping stones to reintegration. Judge Nicolas Belpo has officially withdrawn from the Afrinic inquiry as confirmed in court yesterday. The decision followed an injunction request filed by Cloud Innovation Limited, which raised concerns about a conflict of interest, pointing out that Judge Belpo had previously presided over 3 of their cases against Afrinic, while his legal representatives argued that his independence was never compromised and that he had informed authorities of the situation upon appointment. Judge Belpo chose to step down to preserve the integrity of the judicial system and his own. And now the story that has shocked many. Orion, an 8-year-old boy who was forced to follow his biological father to Germany without the prior consent of his mother. On Sunday, after returning from a prayer session, the boy was taken to the airport and put on a plane to Germany. Yet the law clearly states that the consent of both parents is required before a minor can travel abroad. Shailene Yaban reports on this.
At the age of innocence, when everything is supposedly beautiful, everything is supposedly rosy, a child sees the world through the eyes of his parents. But what about Riam, this little boy forced against his will to follow his father to Germany? Is there any protocol to determine whether such an action goes against the law? Anita Goura, ombudsperson for children, tells us more.
Avant qu'un enfant mineur ne quitte le territoire mauricien,
before a minor child leaves the Mauritian territory, both parents must go to the local police station and sign an official application form. In addition, the child must be enrolled in a school, so there must be necessarily a letter from the school or the Ministry of Education authorizing the child to leave the country. And I have to say that I am very surprised that despite all the existing procedures, a minor was able to leave for Germany and pass through passport control and immigration officers without the necessary checks being carried out.
And since we are talking about the law, lawyer Lovina Saoki goes further. She explains the procedures in place to bring back a child when he is taken away by one of his parents.
Now,
in this case, since it is the parent who kidnapped the child and took him to a country that is a signatory to the Hague Convention, like Germany, for Mauritius it becomes relatively simple for the other parent to recover the child. There is a department within the Ministry of Gender Equality that handles child abduction, and also the foreign authorities in the country where the child is located. They will trace the child and then a case court will follow to have the child returned. Moreover, when the parent who kidnapped the child returns to Mauritius, the authorities can prosecute him for child abduction.
Thus, one question remains as to when a reinforcement or tightening on the law will there be to better protect our children.
And it's 9:08. You're listening to RM1, where we move to international news, where a French researcher serving a 3-year sentence in a Russian prison is now being investigated for espionage, according to a court filing seen by AFP on Wednesday. Documents showed that Laurent Vinatier is facing a new court hearing on August 25 on espionage charges, which carry a sentence of up to 20 years. Vinatier, who worked for a Swiss conflict mediation organization, is among a number of Westerners arrested in Russia since diplomatic tensions soared over Ukraine. And finally, now on to sports, where there will be no races this weekend. At what's happened so far. After 3 race days, trainer Carl Hewitson and owner Paul Foucault lead the standings along with jockey Donovan Mansour. Their team has secured 8 victories, including the prestigious Duchess race. The establishment is already planning for the 2026 season with the acquisition of no fewer than 11 horses. And that's all from me this morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay tuned now to the Intermeet playlist on RM1.
RM1, la nouvelle.